Well, hello. This is Karin Zoe Lee, and you're listening to Lotus Moon Productions. Welcome to LMP Music. Whatever the music, whatever the tune, we're here to learn, discuss, and promote the independent music scene. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 45 minutes as Shugo Hanasaki tackles the music industry one artist at a time.
Welcome back to the LMP music scene. I'd like to start this week's podcast by thanking everyone on our Twitter. We've reached over 200 followers. We're only moving up from here. And a special thanks to everyone who has shared and retweeted our material over the last year. Every last one helps. But moving back into the music discussion, our guest of the hour has many different styles of music. He's the lead singer of rock band LANNON and sings alongside Lucien Jorg with Digital Ghost, which is based more on the electronic synth sounds. With his vast creativity, powerful voice, and deep lyrics, he continues to push the limits with his music. So without further ado, please help me welcome Johnny Icon. How's it going today, man?
All awesome. What an introduction.
Well, how can I not? I mean, I've been jamming, like I said before we came on air here, I've been jamming to your music, and your voice is incredible.
Oh, that's so awesome to hear.
How did all that come to be with, you have 4 projects, right?
Yes. So I've got so four projects that are kind of alive. I've done some other stuff throughout the years. So I've got Icon and the Black Roses, which is probably more known for. This kind of goth rock. I've got LANNON, which you mentioned is more sort of heavy metal style. I've got Digital Ghost, which is synthwave. And then I've got Ace of Hearts, which is, again, sort of in the sort of goth metal genre.
Yeah, I mean, geez, you're all over the spectrum, which is great, like all over the musical spectrum. And I mean, when you shared Icon and the Black Roses with me, you shared Wings of a Dreamer, and I absolutely loved that song. I was like, where has this been my entire life?
That's great to hear. So I suppose we're kind of obscure to a certain extent. We got a small cult following. It's pretty loyal, but well, I suppose we kind of we've been under the radar, mostly the other side of the world, sort of America. I don't think many people have heard of us.
Well, they definitely should. I mean, now I love starting off the podcast with this question, and it may be repetitive. It may be repetitive to some, but it reveals so much about the artist to the audience in the best ways. How would you define Johnny Icon, and what brought you into music?
Oh, wow. That's pretty deep, right? So what defines me? I suppose kind of, I don't know, like I've been out there kind of like, sort of your usual sort of rock frontman, gigging, performing live. But I'm kind of, one side of me is kind of like, sort of that person that is, kind of fronting a band. The other side is probably a bedroom warrior, doing kind of my music in my home studio, kind of away from everything. And I suppose it all started when I was around 10, I think. I kind of watched a colleague of mine who brought a guitar and he, to the class, and he was playing some tunes. I think it was Nirvana or whatever that was. It sounds so cool. So I thought to myself, I want to do that as well. So I kind of got a guitar myself and started playing. And yeah, I kind of remember when I picked up the guitar and everybody was just kind of playing other band songs. I kind of started writing my own stuff straight away, which was pretty shit at the time, as you can possibly imagine. But yeah, I kind of never looked back from there.
What inspired you to have all those multiple bands that focused on such different sounds? I mean, like we mentioned, we have Ace of Hearts, we have Icon and the Black Roses, Digital Ghost, and LANNON.
Yeah, well, so Ace of Hearts is a bit of an odd one because Ace of Hearts was more of a project where I was invited to sing. So I was a guest singer, and as a guest singer, you kind of, it's you can't avoid actually taking center stage because you're kind of giving the voice to the music. But it was a project that was started by other musicians, whereas the others are pretty much my babies. So Icon was just. I suppose kind of if I rewind, I kind of I learned how to play the guitar, and I had some private lessons and invested quite a lot in that, but I never really had any bands until quite late. I think it was around sort of my 15, 16. So it was a kind of late teens, and And I joined the doom metal band at the time. I had a guitar that was blue and sounded like a flute. People used to tell me it was a really cheap, crappy guitar. It sounded terrible. So I recorded some demos with a doom metal band called Delightful Solitude. And then from that point onwards, I was actually kicked out of the band. Supposedly I had a really terrible temper, so the guys kicked me out, and I didn't do anything for a while. And then it wasn't up until when I was in sort of my early 20s that I got together with a bunch of guys and created this band called Blue Obsession, with which we've got a demo, which then went on to become Icon, and that's kind of sort of the short of it is that we recorded the demo, we got a record deal, and we ended up recording our first album in Germany. And from that point onwards, we kind of, we were on the up, but we ended up splitting up. And as we split up, I took a bit of a pause, moved from Lisbon to the UK, London, and then recorded the second album, which is the one that has Wings of a Dreamer, so the one you were alluding to. And from that, it's when I kind of again go a bit of a pause. But the guitar player for Icon's a good friend of mine, is Lucian. So he started writing some songs, some really heavy stuff, much heavier than the stuff we were doing before. And I started singing over the demos, and we were like, well, it sounds pretty cool. So just why don't we record an album? So that's how LANNON came to be. And then I suppose if you go through to kind of more recent times, I've been doing a lot of sort of listening to a lot of synthwave recently, and kind of I'm a big Depeche Mode fan, and in like sort of the 80s sounds, and so I had to dabble a bit in that, and it was just too easy not having other musicians to worry about, kind of write everything in the box, and here's Digital Ghost, and that's how it came to be.
Well, the Digital Ghost is fantastic. I love it because it's like an alternative rock, but also it's like a synth rock, if that's even a thing.
yeah. I suppose. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's a heavy metal musician kind of doing his take on synth pop, and you kind of get a bit of the harshness that comes with sort of the heavy metal singing, but at the same time, I try and make it as melodic as I possibly can, and stay true to the sort of to the 80s sound.
Now, how did you get into the synthwave? Because from me, I mean, I've started listening to synthwave about 3 or 4 years ago with bands like the Midnight, Time Cop, Nina, Dana Jean Phoenix, Michael Oakley, Ollie Ride, the list goes on. There's so many amazing artists like out there that I don't have enough time to mention. Mm-hmm. But like that 80s sound, I've always loved growing up. And when synthwave started becoming popular in the 2010s again, it's really opened the door to so many people, and the music is just there's so much emotion behind synth pop and synthwave now. So like what brought you into changing from rock to synthwave?
So well, I suppose it's not really I don't see it as a change. I see it as kind of just furthering my interests elsewhere. So but how did it came to be? Well, whenever I write music, I keep going back to references back in the 80s. So, the likes of Starship, Depeche Mode, Erasure. I just keep going back to that sort of stuff. And also, just kind of thinking about sort of the Desmond Childs, Diane Warren's, those types of songwriters that kind of left their mark in the 80s. And I suppose I always have that. And when I listened to the first synthwave artist, and for me it was FM84 and sort of the stuff that, especially the stuff that is sang by Ollie Ride.
Yes.
I kind of completely went back and I was like, wow, this sounds pretty damn cool. I was thinking to myself, this should have existed a long time ago. Someone kind of using modern sounds and kind of reenacting the 80s. So I was immediately attracted to that, and as I started exploring it, I suppose the interesting thing for me was that when I did the first Digital Ghost EP, which was never released. It was more like it was a blend between the 80s and the 90s. There was quite a lot of blended stuff in there because I hadn't heard synthwave before. So it wasn't until I kind of got got a hold of some of the synthwave stuff that was going on that it started really influencing the way I write music. And so the Mirror Infinite record with Digital Ghost and the just this EP I've just released with it's called Deepest Love Alchemy. I really kind of embrace the genre and sort of incorporated those elements into my music.
Now, Digital Ghost is a collaboration between you, Lucian Jorg, and David Morgan, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So Lucian is the guitar player. So he's Icon's guitar player, and so he kind of brothers in arms. We we work together on most stuff. I think he's one of the few people that I've met that has got similar levels of energy to myself, and then kind of the enthusiasm for music, and so we work really well together. And David does all my backing vocals for Icon and Lannon. So he does some of the backing vocals. Digital Ghosty, and actually sings some of the songs entirely. So that is the three of us.
Now, before we dive into the most recent work of Digital Ghost with Mirror Infinite, I wanted to touch briefly on that EP Supernova back in 2014. Despite it being 6 years old, I think it sounds great, and I feel more people need to be aware of it. Could you tell people how you got started with it and how Supernova came to be?
Yeah, so I suppose that was more of an experiment. So I don't actually sing any of the songs in Supernova. So that David sings all of those songs, and
something sounded a little different.
Yeah, exactly. It was more. I kind of so when I started, it was more like, okay, David had sang in my records with Icon and Lannon, and I was like, well, how about I write some songs and you sing them as the main singer? And it was kind of refreshing not being the singer, not having to worry about how I'd have to sound, or it's more like sitting back and let someone else do the heavy lifting, if that makes sense.
I highly recommend people check it out.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, well, I think because it's our first work, I wish I could go back and tweak a lot of things. And actually, we're just remastering it, so we're doing we're making some changes, and so we can officially release it. Because it's not widely available. It's just available on YouTube. But anyway, so we started as kind of a project on the side, probably not taking it that seriously, and it had a lot of, it was a blend of 80s and 90s influence, and I suppose that kind of, just having that out there, which, to be honest, it didn't really get much attention from anyone. But then again, we're only ourselves to blame because we didn't, invest much in sort of promoting it, actually even getting out there properly. It kind of paved the way for sort of the full album afterwards.
Now, fast forward to 2018 with the release of Mirror Infinite with tracks like Heaven, Forget to Love, and My Reflection. This album felt more synth rock and had more of an alternative personal feel. What was the goal behind that album?
The goal. So when you say the goal, as in terms of the message, or
yes,
all right. Well, it's a good one. I went through quite some personal challenges in the period just preceding that record. Is kind of being quite open. I have a lot of health anxiety issues, and that just kind of manifested itself not just through feeling pretty sort of honestly on edge all the time and anxious. It kind of manifested itself in my personal relationships. So I felt that a way to sort of get rid of those emotions was actually put them down in lyrics, and that's kind of, I think that the record itself is a bit like a roller coaster. It kind of takes you through all of those sort of emotions, and well, I suppose the silver lining for me is that once I kind of commit things to lyrics and to songs, it kind of leaves my body, and it kind of releases me from sort of that sort of pressure. So it's almost cathartic, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I can empathize a lot with that, because I have an anxiety disorder myself. I'm often stuck in that hyperarousal state, in that fight or flight response, always anxious all the time, and it's absolutely hell for anybody who has to deal with that. So the fact that you were able to create such powerful emotional art from that and bring out a positive from it is incredible.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it is, but once it's kind of committed to, once it's committed to sound and lyrics, you can observe it from a safe distance. And what I find it does for me is, it's it's almost like it's left my body. It's not entirely gone, but I can rationalize it, whereas previously I wouldn't be able to. So in a way, that record has kind of been part of sort of some sort of healing process.
Absolutely. I mean, creating music is one of the best ways to help with any problem, really. I mean, music is what makes the world go around.
For sure, for sure.
Now, before we discuss the background of a couple of songs off the album, we're going to showcase a 45-second clip of each track. So let's start off with sharing a clip of My Reflection from the latest album, Mirror Infinite by Digital Ghost.
Tell me to the same place. Wake me up, don't tell me it's okay. Stop pretending nothing's wrong with me, 'cause I just don't feel that way.
What a passionate song. The lyrics speak about overcoming obstacles, facing your inner self, and taking a chance. Could you tell the audience the inspiration of that track?
Well, it's actually that song's probably completely enacts what I was just describing. It's about feeling anxious. In this case for me it was about health anxiety, but I've just seen so many people kind of connecting to it through different emotions, and it's about sort of recognizing those and how difficult it is to overcome them. And sometimes it just feels like you can't sort of move on. You kind of like you're stuck in that sort of almost like a loop of anxiety. And but as I said, it might sound a bit negative, but the positive is it really helps, and I've heard that from people that listen to the track and listen to it a number of times, that it does help sort of in a way offload those negative emotions and sort of move on.
I mean, no wonder I've been rocking out to it so well, and I've been able to empathize with it because, I mean, like I mentioned, dealing with anxiety, I feel all of that in a lot of the tracks, and I mean, in the most positive ways. It's almost like it's rewarding and telling everybody it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, like, the songs, one of the things I tend to do is, I mean, the song's got quite a sort of I say high energy, happy-ish feel to it, and it's quite with a contrast of incredibly, I would say, dark lyrics, and I suppose the message for me is that sometimes everything kind of looks all right on the surface, and people might look cheerful, but when you kind of scratch the surface, you might see something else.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I want to take a moment before we talk about the other track to thank you. It could not have been easy for you to write those feelings down and to share that with the world, and for it to help other people. Thank you, truly.
Oh, thank you. And then actually, this is the paradox with all this. So writing them down is I'm actually quite sort of open as an individual. I talk about stuff without I don't really hold stuff. I just don't. I'm comfortable communicating about emotions, and so committing things to lyrics is just kind of it's part of the way I express myself. But interestingly enough, what was quite difficult was then to shape it, because when you're writing lyrics, and I didn't used to realize this, I only came to understand this sort of a few years back. You write the lyrics, it's almost like you got the stone, but then how do you turn the stone or the rock into a statue? And that's the process of chiseling down, shaping it, is the bit that is really difficult. And resist the temptation to stray from what was your sort of initial message, and that's probably the toughest thing in the creative process, is then to get what is a good idea and make a great I'm saying I sound a bit like big-headed, but it's something that at least you feel is great, and it's the best representation of how you felt, and how you want to present it aesthetically.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put that perfectly. I don't think I've ever heard that saying before, but turning a rock into a statue, I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's do you know what? It's probably the best way to describe my writing process, because if I played you the demos of where I start, you can see that it's almost like it's almost like the rock is there, sort of the foundation, the idea is there, but it just sounds absolutely terrible.
Gotta get the polish out.
Yeah, then you've got to work a lot on it, and I suppose do you know what? It's actually really unfair on a lot of aspiring musicians, because a lot of musicians, they don't actually start making music because they come up with their ideas and they expect to sound like the finished product, and when if you're trying to climb that mountain, it just feels like it's absolutely unsurmountable, and you can't actually get to the other side or to the top. But if you pick things up, you pick a good idea up, and you just persevere, and I tend to work on my songs for 2 years. That's kind of how long it takes me to because there's other challenges and pressures on my time. But I reckon most of my songs take 2 years to develop until you get to the final product. And if people bear that in mind and they don't give up, they just continue working away. That's how you get to a good solid song that people can connect to. Otherwise, it's just there's so much stuff out there. There's so many artists releasing music every 5 seconds. It just all for me just blends into I don't know, like just some sort of mayonnaise, an ocean of mayonnaise. There's just so much stuff that you can't actually sort of tell what's good and what isn't.
Yeah, I mean, well, the second track too I wanted to share and speak about was Heaven. When I first heard it, I was enveloped with a surge of emotions. But before we chat about the track, we'll share a quick clip. So here's a clip of Heaven from Digital Ghost's latest album, Mirror Infinite.
Can any fire burn from these ashes? Maybe burn my heart away. Release me from within. Release me. Lift me higher and beyond the sky to the top of the mountain. Way to heaven. Lift me higher and above the clouds, past the planets and the stars. Please come and take me to heaven.
Now that song is just beautiful. It sounds like that song came from a very deep place, and as we already talked about the album, like with phrases like "it hurts to be alive," "releasing me from within," and "can anyone soothe this pain?" I mean, thousands, millions of people can empathize with those feelings. And the amazing thing about lyrics is that people can interpret them in a million ways. But would you mind discussing the meaning behind the track from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a similar topic. For a period, I genuinely thought I was going to die. It was just, and there was kind of some strange, as if my brain actually wanted it to all to be over with, and just jump to that sort of point where you you sort of disconnect from your body and kind of go somewhere else. And I suppose the song is about hoping that there's something better, you know, to sort of to ascend to, yeah, it's quite deep and personal, and it's a song. I'll tell you what, it's one that song. When I listen to it, it doesn't happen with many of my songs because most of them I just grow incredibly bored and tired of them because I listen to them like thousands of times. But that one is one that still kind of brings tears to my eyes. So you know, I suppose that's got that little something that makes it quite unique.
Well, it definitely brought tears to my eyes. It was absolutely beautiful. You really have a way with lyrics.
Awesome, thank you.
Now, thank you so much for sharing about Digital Ghost. I feel it's a band every rock and synth lover needs to hear. But switching gears before we dive into your most recent work with LANNON, I read that LANNON is best described as a shape-shifting, groundbreaking, once-in-a-generation phenomenon that is considered by many to be metal's best-kept secret. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. Could you tell me about the description and how this project came to be?
Yeah, so the description is a bit over the top, isn't it? I kind of, when we came up with it, we were trying to describe how we felt it kind of, you know, it should be represented. It's so difficult to describe, you know, what do you do musically into words. So when I moved to London, Icon and the Black Roses had taken a hiatus, and I arrived in London, kind of established myself here, and then decided to look for some musicians to work with. And I was actually looking to get musicians into Icon to replace a couple of my bandmates that left for, you know, for different reasons. So I met Lucien through an advert. I think I can't remember the website. Was it Join My Band or something like that? And yeah, so we met and had a good chat, and we swapped some demos. And I remember that kind of listening to his stuff, and it was quite embryonic, but there was always this really dark, just really dark undertone to it, and he wrote in a very different way and style to myself. So anyway, we worked together on the Icon album, and I suppose both of us kind of grew with one another, sort of working together, coming from sort of different backgrounds. And he's got a much more genty kind of, you know, he likes Meshuggah, he likes Korn, you know, those sorts of bands. Whereas I never kind of got into that sort of, you know, noughties metal. I was always more kind of, you know, into the sort of the 80s, 90s, Iron Maiden, Metallica, you know. So we've got quite different influences. And yeah, we kind of worked together on the Icon album. And once we finished, he started showing me some demos. And when I was listening to them, I just thought, this is the darkest shit I've ever listened to in my life. And I was like, let me see what I can do if I can put some vocals on this, just to kind of see what happens. And I remember at the time, the first one was Nothing. And actually, let me just tell you this. It is quite interesting because I think the first LANNON song isn't a LANNON song. The first LANNON song is in Icon's second album, and it's called Sometimes. And why do I say that's the first LANNON song? Because that's the first song that Lucien wrote with me. So he basically created the bass. And then it kind of, you know, the second one was Nothing, which is actually in LANNON's Guide Me Through the Dark. And I remember when I started singing, one thing I've realized is I could use techniques that I never used before. So I don't know whether you know this, but there's a music genre in Portugal called fado, which is really sort of, you know, it's got a bunch of variants, but traditionally it's quite nostalgic, and it's sung by people, you know, dressed in black, and it's got a bit of a, I would say, you know, perhaps sort of North African, Middle Eastern sound to it. So and if you're born in Portugal, it just comes naturally to you, that type of singing is just something that you're surrounded by. And I've realized that I could sing a little bit like that over his instrumentals, which made it even darker. And so I was like, okay, well, can you do some more demos like this? And he came up with some more, and we started working. And within, say, probably, as I said, it takes us 2 years. We released the first album. Yeah, I would say probably the best way to describe it. I mean, I don't know whether you've noticed, but a lot of people online confuse me with David Draymond from Disturbed.
I've seen some of the comments about Disturb. Yes.
Yeah, it's which I, genuinely don't understand because I like Disturbed. Don't get me wrong. I think the guy's amazing. David Draymond's got an awesome voice, but it's not something I listen to. But I would say probably kind of reflecting on the comments we get, I would say we're Disturbed's uglier, meaner, nastier cousin. Probably what would happen if Disturbed was kind of a human, we would be the zombie brother.
LANNON featuring Disturbed coming to a music near you.
Yeah, you know what? There was someone actually said, someone sent me an email saying David Draymond is a dark angel coming from heavens to save us all, and I was trying to decipher that, and just the fact that this individual actually didn't even think that this could be a different singer is mind blowing because obviously I believe I've got a very different voice.
You definitely do. I mean, it's unique. It's rare. I mean, it's got that rustic kind of tone to it that just adds. I don't even know how to describe it. I love it. It's a perfect fit to pretty much all of the music you do. I mean, and I'm not trying to sound like a fanboy or suck up in any shape or form. What would I get from that? I think it's incredible.
Awesome. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, and it's great to hear that, because it just motivates us to do more. That's ultimately you need to get some good energy from the people that you share your music with. There's nothing better than sharing music that you make. It's a privilege.
Yeah, I mean, well, so in 2017, Guide Me Through the Dark was released, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, as you described, I mean, it's dark, it's a harder rock album. I mean, but I could sense again so much emotion throughout the album. I mean, especially songs like Firefall. Could you tell me about Firefall?
Yes, yeah, Firefall. So that song is a reflection on us and humanity and kind of what. By the way, I reflect on humanity and our existence a lot, and I've written many songs about it, and often taking opposite sides. But that song in particular talks about how we as a race we consume the resources around us, and whether we what are we really meant to be? Whether we are we here to kind of to expand and save the universe, or are we here to destroy the planets we inhabit? And it's a reflection on that. And I think if you kind of zoom in and watch a little closer in Firefall, what I explore is how in that process of growth and expansion and consumption, how individuals are basically, they basically serve a purpose and are ground down to dust, and all that stays behind is the purpose they fulfilled, which is inching ever closer to kind of destroying the planet. So that's kind of it's a pretty dark topic, but that's what was going through my mind as I was writing it.
I mean, it can be considered a dark topic, but I've thought these similar things. Like, a lot of people just think, humans are above everything. But at the end of the day, we're all creatures on this planet. We're all sharing this planet. Yes, we're doing more things than others, and some creatures have more intelligence than others. But at the end of the day, we're all living here. And again, even have you ever watched The Matrix?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies, and I'm super excited for number 4 coming out. But one of the things that, as like Agent Smith even said, viruses compared to humans, right? Humans are compared to viruses. And that's one thing that they have in common. They go from one area and populate and suck up all the resources. So, I mean, a song like Firefall is dead on.
Yes, and I suppose that the other angle that Firefall exploits is the sense of immortality through others. You kind of I talk about people burning in the flames after sort of being ground down, and they dance in the flames because right. More will come, and it just doesn't stop, does it? It's relentless, and So yeah, no, absolutely. And then actually in LANNON, there's several songs that explore that topic.
Well, moving on to the present day with Lannon, could you tell the audience about Lannon's recent album Heaven's Gate? I mean, I found a lot of the lyrics incredibly personal once again, with tracks like Necromancer, Gold, Heaven's Gate, Twin Souls, and your cover of Linkin Park's legendary track Numb. It's an album I feel every rock lover could benefit from. Could you tell the audience again your perspective of that album and how it came to be?
Yeah, so we when we finished Guide Me Through the Dark, we were really pleased with the results. We're really happy with that. But we felt that it's still, there was still things to do, and we had lots of ideas that we wanted to explore, and so we started working. Actually, it was a break from in between Guide Me Through the Dark and Heaven's Gate. We released Mirror Infinite with Digital Ghost, so it was a bit kind of coming back to heavy metal. So I suppose the Heaven's Gate is what differentiates. I think the lyrics in Guide Me Through the Dark were very introspective, and whilst Firefall was an example, was kind of more sort of broader lyrics about society. A lot of those lyrics were really personal in Guide Me Through the Dark, whereas in Heaven's Gate, I kind of go more into a sci-fi theme and kind of start theorizing about the future. And the sort of the title track Heaven's Gate, based on the religious group. The guys kind of thought they were going to sort of they believed in aliens, they were going to transcend, and they ended up all killing themselves. And kind of looking at the cover where you've got some sort of place that is waiting for you, which is really bleak. I suppose that's kind of a much more more philosophical take on the future and what we're here to do. And I suppose instrumentally, sort of musically, we wanted to edge things a little bit, a little bit further. We wanted to have an album that was more, have more symphonic elements. We're trying to kind of create some sort of soundscapes that kind of created that sort of environment of sort of the immensity of the universe, which is pretty difficult to do these days, especially because there's so much of an option to kind of select and settle for a sound is difficult. But yeah, so those are kind of the sort of the themes and topics that were going through our minds as we put it together.
Well, let's start off with sharing a clip of Heaven's Gate by LANNON, because I need to share that song with the audience, because even though it's the album title, I think it's one of the most important tracks on the album. And again, the lyrics are just fantastic. So here is a quick clip of Heaven's Gate by LANNON.
Relinquish everything, entire human race, the stars into darkness, over the universe, to open heaven's gates, the entire human race, the stars into darkness, over the universe.
Man, I mean, that chorus though, from my perspective, that song makes me feel like one has to drop their ego, everything that holds them back, the judgment and the things, like from experiencing true happiness. Like, I mean, obviously lyrics can be interpreted in many different ways, as we mentioned before, but I mean, that's how I took it when I first listened to it.
Yeah, it's yeah, I really like the chorus. I'll tell you why I like that chorus, and this probably make you smile. It's because it's got this Tears for Fears vibe. So again, back to the 80s, and sort of blended with modern heavy metal. And I just think, and it also kind of got some bits of Dead or Alive, and it just, always thought that had to be done. Someone just had to kind of bring some of those vibes into heavy metal.
For sure. I mean, and speaking of all that heavy metal too, I mean, Linkin Park isn't exactly heavy metal, but another one of your tracks off the album was a cover of Numb by Linkin Park. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. It's peaceful, but it also remains incredibly powerful. But before we chat about that track, here's a clip of Numb from LANNON's latest album as well, Heaven's Gate.
I've become so numb, I can feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. By becoming this, all I want to do is be more like me and be less like you. Can't you see that you're smothering me, holding too tightly, afraid to lose control? 'Cause everything that you thought I would be has fallen apart right in front of you. Every step that I take is another mistake to you.
Now, first of all, a massive shout out to Chester Bennington and Linkin Park. I know I could never speak for him, but I feel the entire band would be proud of you for that cover.
Oh, that's really kind of you. Do you know what? It's a really interesting thing because covers are a difficult topic for me, and I'll tell you why. It's really difficult when you really like a song. If you try and cover it, you're always comparing yourself to what the original sounded like. And throughout my sort of musical career, I've done some covers, and the covers you always want to cover the songs you like. So it's incredibly hard to do it because you always end up feeling that whatever you come up with is a little inadequate. And I'll just give you an example. In Icon's first album, we covered "Running Up That Hill" from Kate Bush, which is one of my all-time favorite songs.
Fantastic song.
Oh, it's incredible! Just the environment it creates. It's one of these songs that people might be sort of, I don't know, like, feeling happy, positive. You start playing it and you can feel the mood changes immediately. With Numb, it's really difficult to cover that song and not sound, Jess's energy on that song is just incredible. So I didn't try and sort of match that. I decided when both me and Lucy, we kind of decided to go for a more mellower version, which kind of used my sort of characteristics like darker voice and deeper, more than sort of the sort of the high pitch kind of screaming type of tones. And it was a lot of fun. But I'll tell you what, it's over and over we just kept on going back and kind of trying to get it better and better. And I suppose it's. I'll tell you this little secret. I don't listen to that track because I always feel like it's worse than the original.
Well, it's not. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I might be wrong to say this, but from my perspective, I think it's just on par. I mean, like it's a beautiful cover of that song. And again, when I say that Linkin Park, would be proud of you, and I mean Chester would be proud of you. Again, I know I can't speak for them, but anybody who hears that cover, I mean, it's beautiful. It's like, yeah, I think you absolutely smashed it.
Awesome. That's really good to hear.
Now, what inspired you to cover that specific song by them? I mean, for me, I grew up listening to Linkin Park, when I was 11, 12. That was like 17, 18 years ago. And I kept up with them for their entire career. And there's a lot of songs out there that Chester has written that are just, there's no words to describe how amazing they are. But I mean, why on Heaven's Gate?
Yeah, it's well, we hadn't done a cover in a while. Right, so the previous cover, as I said, like before that, I did the cover of Running Up That Hill in 2004. So it took me over 16 years to do another cover of a song, and for very good reasons. And I suppose the reason why I chose that song, so back when Linkin Park were kind of sort of coming into the music scene, and just they had the breakthrough with the first album, and and the second album came out. And I suppose that from that particular period, that's the song that I just kept on going back to. We thought about trying other songs. Plus the other thing is I can't rap. There's two things I can't do. I can't rap and I can't scream. So we kind of like, if you think about that, it kind of takes quite a lot of Linkin Park songs out. But I think it's a combination of both. So it's selecting something that I could actually interpret, and at the same time, probably my favorite song by them.
It's definitely one of mine. I mean, and again, thank you for sharing your thoughts on all of those tracks. Now, going forward, I mean, I get this question asked a lot from other people, and like just finding out if this is going to happen with other artists. And I mean, it's becoming popular. So I'm just wondering, will any of your bands be releasing anything vinyl? Because I know a lot of people really, really like vinyl lately.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I'll be completely honest with you. We're going the opposite direction, and I'll explain why. What I mean by opposite direction. So probably the last full-length album that I will ever release it was Heaven's Gate. And why is that? Because I just, the effort it takes to record 10 songs and get it to that sort of level it just doesn't justify the level of engagement that you kind of get in return. These days, what gets you quite a lot of engagement is you can release, probably the same content, but instead of releasing 10 songs at a time, where you have to wait for 2-3 years, you can release every sort of 6 months. You can get out like 2-3 songs. So when I say we're going the other way, we'll be releasing 3 songs at a time for each one of the projects, which makes it a lot more manageable. Now, whether we can then group those songs and kind of do a special release in sort of physical formats, be it CD or vinyl, remains to be seen. I suppose, it's a tricky thing. So for me, I don't depend financially on music. So every time I kind of spend time making music, I don't spend that much time doing things on the periphery of music. For example, organizing the artwork, getting videos done, the promotion online, websites, all that sort of stuff, which requires quite a lot of effort. I tend to avoid that, and so do the people that I work with. So it's all comes down kind of to an option. Do you spend a lot of time working out how you release physical copies, or do you use that time to write new material? And for me, it's kind of, that decision is pretty easy to make, because I'm all about making new music, writing new stuff, and releasing new material. So I suppose quite a convoluted answer, but maybe, but it would have to be in the context of maybe grouping a series of EPs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, I know for sure that if Mirror Infinite was released on vinyl, I would order it. I wouldn't even hesitate.
Yeah, it's just so this is the interesting thing, right? Because when we created Mirror Infinite, we always we had in mind a digital release. So the booklet is literally a cover. So there's no, we never develop it beyond the cover. I suppose that we could always go back and do that sort of stuff. And I'll be honest with you. Actually, the physical copies give us quite a they're a good source of revenue. But I suppose I get a bit lazy because I don't depend on my music for a living. So the sort of the monetizing aspects of it are kind of become a bit secondary for me.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's been difficult too as of this year too, with releasing and sharing things. I mean, artists have had to work their ass off because of the global pandemic.
Yeah, sure thing. And I feel for people in that sort of situation. They can't play live, and I've worked with a lot of musicians. A lot of friends of mine are professional musicians, and they're suffering with this.
I mean, do you mind just with about 5-10 minutes left on the podcast? I mean, time has flown by as it usually does, which is amazing. But I mean, could you tell the audience about what you had to face this year? Because I mean, everybody has dealt with some sort of anxiety or just depression or life restrictions or losing your job, something negative. I mean, we've all been able to find positive within COVID-19. We've been able to find, certain things that we can do, more creativity, at home, and finding the silver lining in things. But I can't imagine how it might have affected you. Could you share like the negatives and the positives that
Yeah.
this year has granted you?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, this is it's just an interesting year for me because sort of there's a number of angles. So professionally, I had a really good year with my work, which is completely unrelated to music. So I actually work in engineering consultancy. So I had a really good year with work-wise. Music-wise, released Heaven's Gate, which I believe is my best work thus far, and incredibly proud of having completed that. So delighted that's the case. Also, and I haven't mentioned this previously, but just finished a 3-song EP with Digital Ghost. So that's actually I've submitted that for release today. So it will be a matter of days until it actually hits the digital store. So really prolific year for me, and I suppose you kind of expect that because got so much time on my hands actually being at home and not having to commute and making the best out of the sort of time I've got now. One thing I must admit is kind of working in the same space where I record my music and is not necessarily positive because I suppose I'm talking to you from my studio, which has also been lately my office. So and normally the kind of the way music works for me is kind of you get back home from a tough day, go into my studio and a kind of escape into a world where I'm surrounded by preamplifiers, microphones, guitar amps, guitars, bass guitars, just surrounded by awesome stuff that really takes my mind off work. And I suppose this experience, throughout the year, and I can't complain, there's people who had it much worse than me, but what I found was quite difficult is the blurring of the lines of my professional life and music. And what I found is whilst I was really prolific with material that I released that I had written previously. I haven't been prolific in writing new stuff, and that's I think that's a direct consequence of the sort of situation we're living. What I would say also in terms of the kind of a challenge as well is I'm Portuguese, so my part of my family is back home. And not being able to see my family as often as I'd like is a challenge. Not seeing friends as well. I don't know how things are over there, but here in the UK, there's some pretty restricting measures. So you don't actually. For example, you can't actually go to someone's house. If you want to meet anyone, you've got to meet them outside. Yeah, that's been the challenge. What I'd say is, again, a positive was that for a period of time, I was actually able to relocate to Portugal for 3 months during summer. So going to the beach, and so that was nice. So I don't know. It's I think I would say I adapted pretty well because, as I said, like I tend to use my time quite wisely working on my music. But actually, just so one last thing, it's actually one thing it's done, and I wonder. I'm sure it's done this for a lot of people. It's just made me reassess a lot of things about my life, and one of the things is kind of where I want to be physically. Do I want to be? As we speak, I'm in central London. Actually, from where I am, I can see the city of London. It's with all its shining lights in the background. And I'm kind of thinking, do I need to be in the center of London? Can I go somewhere else, build a bigger studio? Can I perhaps dedicate some of my time actually producing music, producing other bands, helping, teaching music? I'd love to be a music teacher. So yeah, I think it's kind of been a period of reflection, but I'll be honest with you, I can't wait until this shit is over.
You and me both, bud. You and me both. And thank you for sharing that with me. And especially, now I'm excited for a new release from Digital Ghost.
Oh, yeah. So actually on YouTube, you can see another cover version of a song I absolutely love. So I have advanced that track, and there's 2 others which will come in due course. But Yeah, it's of a Portuguese artist which I admire, and it's I actually, believe it or not, it's the first time ever that I sing in Portuguese.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
So it's
I definitely look forward to hearing that.
well, I hope you enjoy it. It's no, it's really you probably won't be able to understand anything, but I can tell you the lyrics are pretty deep, and it is a beautiful song, and I hope I did it some justice. But yeah, so a lot of fun, and also what's weird is when you're singing. I mean, I'm singing in my mother tongue, but I never sang in my mother tongue before, and having to adapt. Actually was quite the experience because you kind of bring a lot of habits from singing in English to your language. So when people kind of, if you're not careful, when people back home listen to me singing, they might think I sound foreign. That's not great.
So, I mean, before we end things, what are the goals of Johnny Icon in 2021?
Well, it's a great question. I suppose so. I've been promising. We got a lot of people that follow Icon and the Black Roses, and it's been really difficult for me to kind of go back and do anything with Icon, for a number of reasons. But the fans of they keep on asking for a new record, and the fact that I changed from sort of recording full albums to 3 songs actually makes it a lot easier. So I've decided that my next project is with Icon. So I'm going to do 3 songs with Icon, and then after that, it's likely to be 3 more songs with Digital Ghost, and then after that, 3 more songs with LANNON. And I reckon I should be able to get at least 2 of those 3 out next year. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, perhaps we can connect in the new year at some point, maybe the middle of next year over the summer, and promote more Icon and the Black Roses.
Sure thing. That'll be great.
Wonderful. I mean, consider it done, dude. And I mean, and with that, I mean, we'll wrap things up. And thank you so much for spending this time with me, Johnny. I really enjoyed your company.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. My pleasure.
Now, before we sign off, could you share your social media so people know where to find you and your music?
Yes, sure thing. Let me see if I can remember. So people can find me on Instagram. So it's Johnny Icon _. So that's me. On Twitter is Johnny _Icon _. You can see there's a lot of people kind of stole my domains before I could. And on Facebook, let me just double check. I've actually got it open here. It's johnny.icon.1. I've got a website which is johnnyicon.net. So you can see there's a bit of a repetition of a theme. But anyway, in any of those profiles, you then can access all of my music and through the various bands.
Well, thank you so much for that. And you can find all of our social media as well at SoundCloud under Lotus Moon Productions, Facebook under Lotus Moon Productions, Instagram under Lotus M Productions, Twitter under Lotus Moon Prod, and you can search us on YouTube under Lotus Moon Productions. This has been LMP Music. Please be kind to one another. And with that, we are signing off.